Ben Salem. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky, alongside my producer, Julia Hofster, on the CHL Life Sports YouTube page. We have a ton to get to today, a lot on this show, including are the Eagles making a huge mistake here if they end up trading one A.J. Brown. Plus, it is time to give up on the Sixers and this exhausting process of Joel Embiid. Embiid is out once again today in Atlanta. He has missed 47% of Sixers games. It has been absolutely brutal. Tyrese Maxey has an interesting comment, brutally honest about where the Sixers. And we'll also catch up with Fox Sports and MLB Network reporter Tom Verduchi. He has great insight on the Phillies. Does he think that the Phillies are making a big mistake as they are so-called, quote, running it back? We're going to get all into that here on Bet Park Saturday from the Sportsbook at Parx Casino. All right, let's start with the Eagles. And man, oh man, last night I saw this Max Crosby news come across my feed, and I'm praying when I look at this, it's going to be the Eagles. It wasn't. The Raiders are reportedly sending Max Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens for draft picks, first-round draft picks, a really high-end deal to bring one of the best players in football, an elite defensive player. And I could just not think of, man, could the Eagles have worked out a deal? And, you know, there was some talk, there was a report out there that maybe, just maybe, Jalen Carter was open for trade bait to land Max Crosby. The Eagles, you know they were in on that deal. Howie Roseman has said it time and time again. Anyone that's out there, he makes a call on. At least a call on, right? And so you have to wonder, how close were the Eagles to landing Max Crosby? I would have traded Jalen Carter in a package deal for one Max Crosby. Max Crosby would have been a perfect fit here. Perfect fit here because he's a dominant elite player, okay? And then you have him surrounded around Jordan Davis. On top of it, Crosby has gushed about the Philadelphia Eagles and the city of Philadelphia and Eagles fans. Did you hear what he said earlier this season? He was on a podcast and he said, quote, this is about Eagles fans. They're rowdy, they're crazy. If you love football, that's what you dream of as a kid, playing in Philadelphia. Loved it. That's Max Crosby, right? And so he went on to say, I like cities that really have substance to them and true fan bases and love for their city and the game. Going to Philly, you can feel that energy when you go there. That is from Max Crosby. You could just hear it in his voice, right? And I can't do it justice reading that quote. But Max Crosby said that on a podcast, and you just wonder, he would have been great here. The fans would have went crazy for Max Crosby. And it would have been such a great fit under Vic Fangio and this defense and this fan base. You name it, it would have been great. Didn't happen. He's going to go to the Baltimore Ravens. And, you know, we mentioned that there was that report out there that Jalen Carter potentially was being floated out there as a guy that maybe the Eagles would have used as trade bait because, you know, he's coming up for a deal. And, you know, Jalen Carter has had some stuff between the spitting and other stuff off the field. You're just going, do I really want to pay that guy? Has he made some mistakes? Of course he has. Can he learn from it? Of course he has. But when it comes to that, when it comes to a Max Crosby, I would have made that deal. And, you know, if you remember from the Combine, I don't know if you heard this at the Combine, but Raiders GM John Spytek, who used to work for the Eagles, joked when he was asked about Howie Roseman about potential trades with the Eagles and Howie Roseman. And he said, trade calls with Howie? I always watch myself a little bit when he calls because he's so good at what he does. Now, he was joking, but the Raiders GM, who knows Howie Roseman, learned under Howie Roseman when he worked in the Eagles front office, in the scouting department and things like that. He knows. Like, he knows Howie, and Howie does have that reputation, and not in a bad way, but in a way that Howie's so good at his job. Other teams go, huh, what is Howie trying to pull here? He's so good at it, you almost have to second-guess yourself. Now, at the end of the day,
Spytek and the Raiders, they would have made that deal with the Eagles because they're not, division rivals and things like that. Had the package been better than the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens clearly gave the best package. So that's how that worked out. But I have to say, man, I went to bed last night thinking I would have loved Max Crosby in Philadelphia. And I don't know if there's an Eagles fan out there that would disagree with that sentiment. And I don't know if there's an Eagles fan out there that would say I'd rather have Jalen Carter over Crosby. Not saying apples to apples but I think that Crosby would have been dominant in this defense, dominant in Philadelphia, and beloved in the city. And, he's under 30. He's certainly been in the league for quite some time, but he's under 30, and he's probably getting one big contract left. So I would have loved that deal. But in any event, there's been a lot of chatter, a lot of noise, a lot of smoke around the A.J. Brown situation. And I have to think, and I do believe, as I sit here today, the Eagles would be out of their minds to trade A.J. Brown. Unless you're bringing back a stud receiver in return, which you're not, right? If you were to trade him to the Patriots, you're not getting back a stud receiver in return. You would be out of your mind. First of all, you're taking a massive cap hit. And the Eagles have a ton of money they have to spend. And look, Howie Roseman and his team are brilliant at managing the cap. But the Eagles would be out of their minds to trade A.J. Brown. Is he the stud receiver from 3 years ago? Probably not, but he is a darn good receiver. And to trade A.J. Brown, you are making this Philadelphia Eagles team worse. You're in a window right now. This window right now to win. And you look at A.J. Brown's stats, he has been very, very good. And the decline in stats, it's fair to say, are not all his fault. But the Eagles, if you're going to trade him, can you guarantee you're going to bring back another stud receiver? And remember, he takes pressure off of the other guys. He takes pressure off of Devontae Smith. He takes pressure off of Dallas Goedert. He takes the pressure off Jahan Dotson and anyone else, and maybe even Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. And when Jalen Hurts has had to ice games over the years, who does he go to? He goes to, more times than not, A.J. Brown. And so again, unless you can orchestrate a trade that you're going to bring back a stud receiver in return, what are we doing here? The Eagles have a window to win a Super Bowl. They have multiple years here. This window is open for multiple years. When you look at this window and this team and the core of this team, don't mess around here. Don't mess around. And I know that at least at this point, the Eagles are seriously gauging their interest to see what's out there, and they're doing their due diligence. Why would you not? They do it on every player. But where there's smoke, there is fire. And, if you pull the trigger and trade A.J. Brown, you have a $40 million cap hit before June 1st. I think it goes down to about 20 after June 1st. And they have said all along, they're not in the business of getting rid of great players. But you can't sit here today and tell me trading away A.J. Brown is going to make this team better, and you cannot guarantee me you're going to get a stud receiver in the draft. You cannot tell me and guarantee me you're going to get a stud receiver in free agency or another trade to bring back a stud receiver. And A.J. Brown, despite what's on the outside, as far as maybe he's disgruntled or unhappy and things like that, I don't think it's as bad as it's portrayed. I just don't. I don't think the A.J. Brown situation in Philadelphia is as bad in that Eagles locker room as it's portrayed. Is A.J. Brown frustrated? Yes. Should he be frustrated? Yes. The offense last year, awful. Awful. And when you look at that entire team, the studs they have on that offense, it was awful. A lot of it had to do with the offensive line. A lot of it had to do with just the guys not in sync and the injuries on the O-line and the guys banged up and the timing and everything else. And remember, coming off that Super Bowl was a long year. They have a new offensive coordinator. It just didn't click. I get A.J. Brown's frustration. He wasn't wrong. But to say that he's so disgruntled that he has to be out of here, I think that is just taking it to a whole nother level. That's not necessary. And I do think the Eagles would be out of their minds to trade A.J. Brown because you're making your team worse and you're creating a cap issue. That I understand the Eagles would figure out the cap thing. They did it with Carson Wentz. A lot of ways that was the blueprint for getting rid of highly paid players with massive cap hits. But when you look at A.J. Brown's numbers, the receiving yards per game, they're still there. They went down drastically last season, 66.9 receiving yards per game that he averaged last year, down from the 80s in the 3 previous years. I get it. I understand it when you look at this. But A.J. Brown is under contract until 2029. Will he fulfill this whole contract? Probably not. But what I would tell you is the production, the decline in production is not all on A.J. Brown. You know that. I know that. The Eagles know that. Sean Mannion, the new offensive coordinator, he gave the Eagles, during his interview, during the entire process of coming on board with Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff, ways to get A.J. Brown the ball and ways to just get this offense going surrounded around A.J. Brown. Eagles out of their minds to give up on the A.J. Brown because you cannot guarantee they are going to bring in a stud receiver, and Jalen Hurts needs a stud receiver. Okay, on top of Devontae Smith, who is a great, fantastic player, it takes the pressure off. It takes the pressure off Devontae. It does, and I think you have to account for that. And we don't know if Dallas Goedert's going to be back. And then, how much more pressure is on the offensive line? And Saquon Barkley. Okay, the teams, they said last year, we're going to take away the run. We're not going to let Saquon Barkley beat us. We're going to let Jalen Hurts beat us and see what happens. And we saw what happens. It was ugly. It was bad. So on the surface, steady decline from A.J. Brown. But we know, you know, I know, we all know, it's not all on A.J. Brown. And to give up at this point, I think is a massive mistake. Just a massive, massive, massive mistake. And so when you think about where the Eagles are headed with this A.J. Brown situation, I don't know. I mean, they're testing the waters. If the Eagles were to get their number, would they pull that trigger? They might. They might pull that trigger. I think it's a huge, huge mistake. And I want you to hear what NFL Network reporter, insider Mike Garafolo told Anthony Gargano on PHLY Sports yesterday, really kind of characterizing the A.J. Brown situation right now. Let's listen to this.
Latest that you hear.
Howie is holding firm, and now you're seeing teams like Buffalo that were in it saying, you know, got to grab the old bird in the hand versus the two in the bush, right? And now really all eyes are toward New England right now to see if that's a possibility, and because you know the connection there, it's been talked about, and they definitely have been talking to them. There's no question in my mind, and they have to make a decision because they're coming up on free agency here, and Alec Pierce has been a guy that's been mentioned in connection to New England. I've had people go, Pierce's deal's already done to New England. It's that time of year where it's like, okay, we're still 3-4 days away. I'm sure that there's been talk between the Patriots, even though there's not supposed to be, talk between the Patriots and Alec Pierce. So, at this point, we're coming close. Now there's a couple of ways this plays out, right? Maybe you get to the start of the league year and Howie goes, okay, like we're keeping him. He's in the fold. And then we get closer to the draft, and maybe it rekindles. And then we get into training camp, the season. Now you're after June 1st, which I know is preferable from a salary cap standpoint. There's a couple of ways that this could play out. And frankly, it's a challenge for Howie to figure out how to do it, not just from a personnel salary cap standpoint, but from a personality standpoint.
Yeah, and we're going to get to the whole Tom Verduchi conversation about the Phillies and are they running it back in a second. But let's finish this Eagles conversation. And I think what Mike Garafolo was saying is really a lot like we're saying here, which is the Eagles are testing the waters. Will they pull the trigger? It's hard to say will the Eagles and Howie Roseman pull the trigger. I don't think that this draft is loaded with stud receivers that they can guarantee themselves to get a guy that is going to be a difference maker. If you could guarantee that, maybe you would do it, and maybe this would come down to how it plays out on draft night. It could, but I don't think they're going to bring back, a Jamar Chase kind of player. I just don't, right? And so the Patriots seem like the obvious fit for 1,000 reasons. Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown's connection, and they need somebody with Drake May, and they're going to let Stephon Diggs go. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of connections to be made there, but there's other teams that have been in on the A.J. Brown that have checked in on the situation. And the Eagles, I'm sure, again, they've admitted they will listen to anything and everything, and they're going to gauge their interest. I don't think the Eagles pull the trigger. I don't think they should pull the trigger. And they have so many other guys to lock up. And when you think about the salary cap ramifications, whether it's the $40 million hit, whether it's a $20 million hit, they have a lot of other priorities. And so the Eagles at some point here are going to have to make a decision. And maybe their hand will be forced one way or another, but they have to make a decision. You have the Dallas Goedert situation. What are you doing there? What do you do in Jalen Phillips? I mean, Jalen Phillips is going to command a lot of money. And you can make the argument that Dallas Goedert would command a lot of money. So what are you going to do here in that situation? You need a tight end. They should have drafted a tight end last year. I'm surprised they didn't. But here we are. They need a tight end. And I'm sure the Eagles, they have a plan. Howie Roseman in his room has a list of all the free agent tight ends, all the guys they would want, all the guys they could get, what it would take to get each guy. This is all planned out. But they have other needs. What do you do when Jalen Carter? We talked about that. You have to pay that guy. Jordan Davis is going to be coming up for a deal. I mean, Jalen Carter was a first-round pick in 2023. He's made the Pro Bowl in each of his first 2 seasons. The 24-year-old finished the year with only 3 sacks in 11 games. He remains under contract for next season on that rookie deal, a 4-year, fully guaranteed contract worth about $21.8 million, signed in 2023. He has a 5th-year option for the 2027 season, valued at $27.1 million. Okay, so it's a ton of dough, right? And so what are they going to do with that situation? I would have been okay, as I said, moving Jalen Carter for a Max Crosby. I think Carter he has all the potential in the world, but I think there's trouble. I think he just has lapses in judgment. We saw in the spit situation. You don't need that, right? You don't need that. Is he a dominant force? 100%. 100%. And then you have the Jordan Davis situation. First round pick in 2022. He's the primary run-stopping nose tackle. And you have Phillips, okay? I mean, Jalen Phillips, when he was traded here for the Miami Dolphins, was fantastic. Fantastic. I know the Eagles would like to keep him, but at what number? And so that's where things are going to get tricky here, because if you trade A.J. Brown and you're on the hook for 40 or you're on the hook for 20, it's really going to it's going to hurt you. And by the way, you're not making your team better. So I think the A.J. Brown trade possibility is problematic. I just think it's problematic. I really do. And they know their books better than any of us and better than any analyst out there. I just don't think it happens, and I don't think it should happen. I think you have to give this a shot. And I think the distraction and the issues that may or may not be caused inside that locker room are not as big as they are on the outside. And you have to remember, the Eagles also have some other core players they have to lock up. Don't forget about the stud corners, Quinnen Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. These guys have to get paid, and the Eagles want to pay those guys. And the Eagles, under Howie Roseman, have always been at the forefront of locking guys up early, okay? Locking them up for a long period of time, a year or two early, to be able to kind of, so-called beat the system, because you're not paying potential fair market value at that time. You're paying for the future. And you can get them maybe at a lower cost earlier. And Howie's been very successful like that. I know he wants to lock up these 2 young players. Here's what Howie Roseman said about Quinnen Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, their futures in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Q and Coop leading that group, 2 all-pro players, guys who want to be part of Philadelphia Eagles for a long time. Really, Coop, he can play anything. He can play outside corner. He can play nickel. He can play at an all-pro level anywhere. So having him gives you some flexibility. And so, we'll go into the offseason and looking to add to that position. Adore did a really nice job for us last year. And it got better throughout the course of the year. And so just like any other position, he's a free agent, and we'll just kind of see how the offseason plays out. Elite player at the nickel position. And so when you have someone who's elite at something, and you move him, he could be elite as an outside corner too. But when he's able to affect the run game, he's able to affect the pass game, the screen game from there, and you just see the difference that he makes in that role. And then when he plays outside, very little separation. He's obviously got size, speed, unique athletic ability. I joke he could be an elite receiver. He could probably be an elite quarterback too. I've seen him throw the ball too. So just an elite athlete with elite character, and just happy he's a Philadelphia Eagle. Yeah, I think you got to go back to how you want to build the team first and foremost. What is your priorities in building the team? Because when we have this many players coming up for second contracts on their rookie deals, it's going to be hard for us to keep all of them. The good news is we have a compensatory system where we can get some draft picks back in the future for some of these guys who've meant so much to us if we can't sign everyone. But we got to make priorities, and you can't only do that by playing favorites. You got to also do it by your vision of how you build the team. And so we'll try to be pretty clear about our vision to the extent that we can, and get those guys back and continue to build on top of that.
So Howie Roseman said it all right there, that they do want to lock up their players that are on their rookie deals. And you talk about Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and your stud corners. The Eagles have to make that work. And so, again, to recap all of this, the A.J. Brown potential trade, that can mess a lot of that up, right? Because then you're sitting there, whether it's $40 million next year, whether it's broken up in $20 million, whatever it may be, it's problematic. I do think it's problematic, and it makes your team worse because you're in this window. All right, let's talk about the Phillies. Spring training underway, World Baseball Classic underway. The Phillies open the regular season in less than 3 weeks. And it seems like there's just almost no buzz about the Phils, right? Weren't you excited about the Phillies forever ago? And I think the last 2 years in October have just sucked the life out of Phillies fans and the excitement. And this offseason, I think had they signed Bo Bichette, it would have been maybe a different feeling going into the regular season. But the excitement and the buzz around this team is not there right now. It's just not, and I understand it. I feel as if everyone's kind of going, all right, let's see what this team does. And I think there's a sense of, I don't want to call it sadness, but how's this team going to work out? They're aging. They're getting older. The phrase "they're running it back" has been thrown around 1,000 times. And you could make the case the Phillies are running it back. Now, I would tell you I don't think that's a bad thing, because what else are you going to do? How much better can you get at each position? Could they have upgraded the outfield a little bit more? I think so. I know they tried, and I think Bo Bichette would have helped this team. Okay, I do. But Adolis Garcia, I think, is an upgrade over Nick Castellanos. He's defensively and for power, and I think he's going to be a better fit. And he's going to keep his mouth shut and not be weird, and I think he's going to be great. But there's just not this buzz around this team and this excitement, and everyone's, so-called cautiously optimistic. And I get it, because the Phillies have broken your hearts in October in each of the last 2-3 seasons, especially the last 2 years where you go, come on, guys, your studs you're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to just are awful in October. Awful. And for all the nonsense that Alec Boehm gets and JT Realmuto got last season for, not being these great players, those were your two best hitters in October in that series against the Dodgers. Alec Boehm and JT Realmuto. So, and that can't be the case. And you do need others to step up and have great Octobers, but you need your studs to play well, okay? You need your studs to carry you, okay? And remember, that divisional series, they shut down Shohei Ohtani. It was the other guys around the Dodgers, the secondary players, that beat the Phillies. The Phillies didn't have it. They haven't had it. So I get it. But you're not going to get Hall of Famers at every position. Even if you did, there's no guarantee they're going to produce in October. So I think this is a very wait and see how we feel with this team. And if they come out and get off to a red hot start in March, in April, I think the buzz and excitement will be there. But I think there is just this feeling of, this run may be over. And that may be the feeling of this fan base because they didn't do anything that electrified the fan base in the offseason. And I would tell you, I don't think they needed to because they have the pieces to win a World Series. They do. And I think they could go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers if the Bryce Harpers, if the Trey Turners, if the Kyle Schwarbers show up in October. If not, none of it matters. Okay? It doesn't matter. You can have Hall of Famers at every position. If you have a bad week or two, you're gone. Goodbye. And so, think about how the Phillies played, in October. It was terrible. It was terrible. Terrible. So I had a chance to catch up with one of the most respected voices in baseball, Tom Verduchi of Sports Illustrated and Fox Sports and MLB Network. He does a great job covering MLB. We talked about the Phillies. Where do they stack up after everything that happened last season, after everything that has transpired this offseason? Should the Phillies front office have done more? We've talked to Tom Verduchi about that surrounding Bryce Harper. Lots of lineup questions. And does he have an issue with the Phillies, so-called running it back? Here's my conversation with Tom Verduchi of MLB Network, Fox Sports, and Sports Illustrated. Tom Verduchi, thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're a busy guy. What job is the most fun right now?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the World Baseball Classic. So Fox has the game, so I get to work some of those games. Listen, I love spring training because I don't have to shovel my driveway when I go out to Arizona and Florida. But I got to be honest with you, spring training games get old in a hurry because you wind up watching. The games are kind of sloppy. You see the back of the roster a lot of times. But the WBC, man, that's like postseason in March. So I always look forward to the WBC, and especially this year because the USA team is just absolutely stacked, probably their best ever.
Yeah, Philly starter Aaron Nola talked about that. He's kind of viewing the WBC as playoff outings, and a lot of the Phillies believe that's going to be good for Aaron Nola coming off the season he had. Do certain guys kind of just up the ante with that? Obviously spring training games can get dull and Grapefruit League and things like that. But for Aaron Nola specifically, do you think that's going to be really good for him?
Yeah, I do. Listen, on a different kind of scale, you saw that with Trey Turner in the last WBC, right? That huge home run that he hit. It does almost prepare you for the postseason. If you haven't been there already, it's a taste of what that is, because the games really do matter. When you're in the ballpark, you really feel it. I know a lot of fans of teams are like, listen, I want to know what's going on in spring training with the Phillies in camp. I don't really care about these WBC games. But when you're there, you pick up this vibe here that the games are played at a high level. I know everybody also wonders and worries about the injury factor. It's way overblown. We've seen already guys get hurt in camp, just doing regular spring training stuff. Listen, Aaron Nola is not going to go out there and throw 8 innings. We all know that. But I just think it's a good point you made about just getting that game edge early in the year without being overtaxed. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and the question really does become, though, especially for pitchers, or I guess maybe even hitters, if you're a team that's going to go deep into the postseason, how tough is that to keep that energy throughout, 162 games plus the energy it takes in the World Baseball Classic?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll give you 2 examples. I saw Tarek Skubal before spring training began, and I was a little bit surprised he signed up to pitch for Team USA because, let's face it, it's his walk here, right? He's a free agent. He's going to sign a record contract. You would think you wouldn't risk anything. But he told me, listen, I'm not doing anything different. I'm not ramping up early. He's going to pitch like 1 time against Great Britain and throw about 3 innings. That's it. So his schedule hasn't changed. He's not doing anything out of the norm. On the other side of it, I look at Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Dodgers, who pitched great, obviously, last year in the postseason, especially the World Series, coming in with no days of rest to win Game 7, his 3rd win in the World Series. He pretty much stayed healthy through 7-month season with the Dodgers. And when you play for the Dodgers, you prepare to play 7 full months. And now he's ramping up early after a quick turnaround after pitching November 1st. So I'm sure the Dodgers will be extremely careful with him once the season starts. But a guy like that, 5'10" right-hander off a really, let's face it, exhausting season for him, an unbelievable season. I'd be careful if I'm the Dodgers, especially, and I know they will be, coming out of the gate and how often you can actually lean on him. I think they'll be really judicious in terms of his pitch counts and innings.
You talk about the Dodgers, and a lot of people wonder this. In Philadelphia, at least, the Phillies fan base, it's almost cautiously optimistic, or it's even turned to negative after the last few postseasons, the way they have just fizzled out in October. Phillies, some say haven't done a lot. Some say they've done enough. They're running it back. That's kind of the phrase that's being used and thrown around in Philadelphia. Where do you think the Phillies stack right here, right now, going into the regular season, compared to the Dodgers, who eliminated the Phillies in the divisional series, and really the other teams around Major League Baseball?
Yeah, well, that is the measuring stick, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of having that Goliath team out there that really does set the bar that high, going back to the Yankees in the late 90s, where you know going in that you're not going to back your way into a championship year. You have to, at some point, especially in the National League, go through the Dodgers. And I'm glad the Phillies are running it back. I thought Schwarber was a must-have sign. They got that deal done. I even think 5 years is not a problem for a guy like Kyle, who I think is better than he's ever been. So I think maybe his best years are ahead of him, which is crazy at his age.
That is, I was going to say, that is kind of crazy and rare to hear at that age, because a lot of people think the Phillies have these aging stars.
Yeah, listen, David Ortiz was better at the end of his career, right? I mean,
right.
I think I look at Kyle as that same kind of a player. In fact, I remember when Theo Epstein drafted Kyle in Chicago, they weren't sure what position he'd play. You know, he's catcher in college. We're going to play him in left field, National League, no DH back then. And he's like, listen, we're just going to put him in left field and let him put up big poppy numbers, and we'll figure it out. And I'm not saying he's big poppy, but he's pretty darn close in terms of the guy now getting to his best years. But your point about age, I think it's a fair assessment of where the Phillies are at. The Dodgers are the oldest team in baseball last year. They won it all. I think a key might be when you look at Crawford in center field, you look at Painter in the rotation, you look at Miller coming, you look at, there are some guys who will get folded into this team, if not right away, certainly in the 2026 season. I like that blend, but I have no problem bringing this core back. I thought last year when they played the Dodgers, I thought that was the World Series. I thought those were the two best teams. Now, I, like a lot of people, undersold how good Toronto was. The more I saw them in the postseason, I was like, wow. And obviously they had the Dodgers on the ropes. But, you know, for a team that won 95 the last couple of years, the Phillies, to me, that was the mega matchup for me, that series. And they played them close. To get the Dodgers, though, you're going to have to outpitch them. And as of last year, when they were healthy, full staff in the postseason, they're a tough out.
Yeah, and the Phillies, they really almost did outpitch the Dodgers in a lot of ways. And look, the Dodgers' big bats and the big money players did not beat the Phillies, right? I mean, when you think about what the Phillies did, it was really came down to their core just not hitting. I mean, Alec Boehm and JT Realmuto were their best hitters in that divisional series. And I didn't have a big issue with the Phillies running it back either. And I think in some ways they got better in right field with Adolis Garcia over Nick Castellanos, especially defensively. And Garcia really has that potential, at least I see and I feel. And I know the Phillies have talked about, hey, they can identify things in that swing that can really get him back to the guy he was in 2023. But look, there are some concerns there. I mean, are you going to be able to get Crawford to be that everyday center fielder, that big time prospect they believe? How's left field going to shape up? And then the situation at third and second. So there are some concerns when you take away the core. There are some concerns in other areas.
Yeah, the concerns, but I think all are solvable, really. I like Marsh. I think if he could just put the ball in play a little bit more, I think there's a ceiling that he has not gotten to yet. Great point on Garcia. I thought that was a great sign by the Phillies. I really did. He's not too far removed from that big year in 23. Watching him the last couple of years, he has really struggled against velocity. He's just not been on time. He's tinkered at his swing with his swing, I think, in the wrong direction. You know, he stopped some of the loading mechanisms that he had. This is where a guy like Kevin Long comes into play, right? I mean, he's been so good at getting guys who are established big leaguers to another level, or getting them back, just making sometimes just simple changes. Sometimes it's just like a Kyle Schwarber, a lot of hard work, to be honest with you. I love the fact Garcia in Philadelphia Hitters Ballpark. For some reason, Texas and Arlington, Globe Life, man, that plate is a pitcher's park. Only Seattle was more friendly to pitchers last year than was Arlington, Globe Life. So change of ballparks, change of scenery, literally. And Kevin Long there, I think there's a big upside there with Garcia. And obviously it's a big upgrade defensively and right field as well. Not that important with the Phillies because right field, let's face it, not that big there at the bank, but still, this guy can throw, he can cover ground. I think there's a big upside there with Garcia at a very small risk.
Yeah, he has a cannon for an arm. And, the Phillies believe they can get him back to that form. And you talk about Kevin Long, Rob Thompson talked about after they signed him that they believe that, okay, they can get him with Long early and really just start working with him in Florida, getting that swing down where they can just make some minor tweaks perhaps and get him. And look, if you sandwich him around Harper and Schwarber, maybe he's your cleanup guy. I don't necessarily know where they're going to put him in that lineup because I've seen lineups so far in spring training like they had last year with Bohm as the cleanup guy. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but Garcia or Schwarber or JT, could be that cleanup guy to really help out and get Bryce Harper some better pitches.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm really looking forward to, what Rob does with the lineup. There's a lot of good options there. Now, I'll be honest with you. We love talking about lineups. I love talking about lineups. The actual impact of it is not as big as all of us think that it is, as long as you have the right guys, right?
I remember I remember covering Tony La Russa, and he was doing stuff that nobody was doing really. He was batting the pitcher eighth, and I remember 1,000 times he tried to explain it to me, and I'm like, I cannot comprehend what La Russa's telling me, because I'm like the 8-hitter always comes up before the 9-hitter. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I know you're right. There are some things you have to consider. Comfort level. Some guys don't like hitting leadoff for whatever reason. You don't want to put a guy in a spot he's not comfortable. That's pretty obvious. And you also look at pockets of hitters. In the Phillies case, I'm not sure you have to split up Schwarber and Harper. They both hit left-handers well, especially the way Schwarber's done it the last 3-4 years. I just want to get my best hitters up to the plate. When that 9th inning comes around, I don't want to have to get through somebody because I'm breaking up right and left just to get to my best hitters. In this case, maybe it's Schwarber. So in some combination, probably, Trey, Harper, Schwarber. I like those three guys at the top. Don't mind the lefties back to back. But it's a good point you make about Garcia and or Bohm. There's going to be a lot of RBIs out there. And that's now you're talking about the depth of the lineup, somebody taking advantage of those three big guys at the top. But I will tell you, I do like Trey at the top now. I think asking him to lead off is a good way to enhance his best part of the game. And that is running, getting on base, making things happen, rather than counting on him as an RBI guy, which he can do. But I play to his strength and have him at the top and just tell him, hey, get on base 34, 35% of the time.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind, Crawford has hit lead off. I wouldn't mind either Crawford up there. Maybe that's too much pressure for a rookie, but maybe even in the 2-hole, and then you get to Harper, you get to Harper, and then I like Schwarber in that 4 spot. Take the pressure off of Alec Bohm. Alec Bohm's not a power hitter. Get him out of there. I've seen it a couple times in Grapefruit League play so far that Bohm is the 4 hitter, and I just hate it. I just hate it. And I go Garcia, JT, if not Schwarber. And I don't like Schwarber as the leadoff guy. I'd much rather have Schwarber as that 4-hole hitter.
Yeah, I'm with you on Schwarber. I think, with Bohm, when he's going right, he's actually a really good RBI guy because he uses line to line. Right. You look at most guys who can hit with runners in scoring position, just check the defense out. They're usually playing straight up. Those are your better hitters in those spots. But I would really caution about Crawford leading off. I saw the Yankees do this with Anthony Volpe when he was a rookie. He profiles there, wouldn't start out that way. I thought they asked way too much out of Anthony Volpe. Just bat him at the bottom of the order and just say, go play the heck out of the outfield in this case. And when you're ready for it, when the time comes around, definitely, I could see him in that spot. I wouldn't start out that way. I'd also would tell him, this is your job. Don't feel like if you go, 1 for 12 the first series of the year, you're looking over your shoulder where you're going back down to AAA. Just assure him, man, you're the best guy we have for this job. We're going to ride this out. Many cases where it happened where guys wrote it out. Famously for me, it's Dustin Pedroia in Boston, really tough his first month there. Francona just stuck with him because he knew he was a good player. And it was just a matter of time. And I feel that way about Crawford. I remember Larry Boa telling me, gosh, now it's like 3 years ago. He was raving about this kid. I didn't know much about him, but he talked about professionalism, makeup, obviously explosiveness. And I think he's going to be as good as advertised, but I wouldn't count on it from opening day.
What did you make of the entire situation with Bryce Harper and Dave Dombrowski when, the Phillies get eliminated by the Dodgers and Dombrowski in his final press conference, really of the season, wrapping everything up, questioned whether or not Bryce Harper essentially was still going to be an elite player. What did you make of all of that? And how much do you think, even though Bryce says he's not going to be motivated by it, I would think deep down as one of the ultimate competitors, he will be motivated by that and have a monster season?
Yeah, listen, I understood why it became news because these days nobody says anything like in-house, especially that's even mildly controversial. And this was mildly controversial. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think it was a big deal, but I understood why it became one, right? But Bryce is, yeah, he's as competitive as comes along. I'm sure he even without Dave saying anything, I'm sure he wants to get back to that 900 plus OPS. And, he did have some injuries last year. I'm sure that was a part of it. I have no doubt he can get back there. There's no question about it. For me, with Bryce, it's always a matter of just controlling the strike zone. Since he was a young player, Scott Boras has talked about him, used Barry Bonds as an example, swing less, but swing smarter. And Bryce just likes to let it fly. He's like a point guard, he's like a shooter. He needs to shoot. In this case, he needs to swing. So I don't, you're not going to change a hitter that much, but I would just dial that aggressiveness back a little bit. And I have no doubt he can get back there. But I don't know that he's going to be a better player because Dave Dombrowski said he wasn't quite elite last year. I mean, I think he just burns to be elite anyway. Did it add fuel to it? Probably, but I don't think this guy needed a kick in the pants.
And I don't know, maybe he was trying to be funny or joking around, but the whole situation was kind of like a moot point. It was dead to me. And then he wears the not elite shirt and he posted on his social media accounts during a hitting session. And then I go, okay, is he joking? Is he using it as motivation? Is it a statement? What is it? But I would think, you hear about in other sports, Michael Jordan or LeBron or Kobe, the greatest athletes in the world will find anything, even if it's nothing. I've heard DK Metcalf talking about it, facing the Eagles. Oh, the Eagles passed up on me on the draft. You hear guys talk about it all the time. And so here's something that was just thrown out there and you go, okay, not elite. I'm going to show you. I just don't care who you are. I just think it's going to take it to the next level. Maybe it won't. I just feel like it'll take it to the next level.
Yeah, you're right, though. I think he is one of those guys, and Jordan is the classic example, right? Any little bit of a slight, he's going to use that to his advantage. A great player, obviously, to begin with, but then a little extra on the motivation pile for sure. I can see Bryce saying that. Yeah, I mean, in the back of his mind, of course. The fact that, as you mentioned, he wore the T-shirt there, making fun of it a little bit, but letting everybody know, yeah, I heard it. I don't have a problem with it, by the way. I mean, I come from the old school where I was around managers like Dallas Green and Davey Johnson and Billy Martin and Whitey Herzog, Earl Weaver. These guys used to rip their players all the time.
Right.
And guys are like, okay, I'll show him. And now it becomes like this big deal. Like, oh, we're supposed to not say things like this in house. It's a different world. I get it.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, because, I've covered La Russa and Boa and those guys and, guys that just wear their emotions on their sleeve. And so, but there's, the athlete is different today in all the sports. It's just different today. I mean, we saw that in Philadelphia with Ben Simmons and things like that. It's just the criticism just does not go over so well. Especially now when you see just so many guys bouncing around in all the different leagues from team to team to team.
Yeah, and it's not to say it's better or worse, as you said. It's just different. I remember talking to Dusty Baker about this. Obviously, he's been around a long time. And he said the difference managing today is you can't motivate from a negative perspective. Like in the days, guys wanted to get guys riled up and wanted to point out some of their shortcomings and have them work on it. And now we call that calling somebody out. If you say anything mildly negative, it always has to be from a positive perspective. And if it is negative, it has to be done privately, right? Like Joe Madden always says, praise publicly and criticize privately. That's the way it is now. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just different. And I think as a manager, you have to know that. But getting back to Dave, I just think, he's a smart guy. He's been around a long time. I don't think he felt like he was dropping a bomb, but it landed like one.
Where do you think the Phillies stack up? And I kind of touched on in the beginning, but is this a team that can make a World Series run? And what do you think it's going to take for this team to get over the hump in October? I mean, it's been, rinse and repeat with their star players not hitting. Is it as simple as that? Or do you think there's a situation or scenario where the Phillies could go backwards? I mean, what are your thoughts as you look at this Phillies team as a whole compared to, the rest of baseball?
Yeah, no, I think it's equipped to go all the way. I think a key for me is going to be Zach Wheeler. I mean, early on here, coming back from the thoracic outlet surgery, everything seems to be good, just getting on a mound now. So slowly ramping up. It's a serious surgery, man. I mean, there's a lot of guys who've come back from it and a lot of guys who took a long time coming back from it. I think it's hard to extrapolate, when and how good he will be when he does come back. That's a big key for me. They need him at the front of the rotation, not just part of the rotation, but really being a number one, really. I think he means that much, just almost emotionally to the team, just as well as what he does on the field. That's a big key for me. Offensively, yeah, maybe putting the ball in play a little bit more. I'm just in love with the way Toronto played last postseason. It was so much fun to watch. They were just so hard to put away, especially 2 strikes. That can always play well in October. But yeah, I look at the National League, and again, it's the Dodgers to me are the class of the field again. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what to make of the New York Mets. I think they probably have as big of a variance as a team than just about anybody. Like the Phillies, I see in that 97 win category. The Mets could win 97. They could win 84. I mean, It's just a big. It's hard to say. They have so many question marks. A lot of changes in the lineup. Not sure about their pitching. There is an upside. I actually think they came out of the winter pretty well based on how it began, losing Diaz and Alonso. The Braves will be good. I know they're a little short on pitching right now. They'll figure it out. Really tough division. I get it. But to me, the Dodgers are 1, and then the Phillies are right behind them at 2 if I were going to seed the National League teams.
So the Phillies fans are going to be happy to hear that because, like I said, there's a lot of, I don't want to say negativity, but I think everyone's just been burned and just feels the last couple of years, just it's been exhausting. And then to see, what they've done this offseason, like I said, people are upset. And you look at the Mets and the Bo Bichette situation and you just go, where is this team?
It's funny about that, though. I was talking to Andrew Friedman in spring training like a week ago. And of course, they're the juggernaut right now, right? People say they're ruining baseball because they're so good. Don't forget, it was only a couple of years ago that the Padres and the Diamondbacks took them out of the postseason. I think they won 1 game out of 2 series there. And then really by the skin of their teeth, got by San Diego 2 years ago. Last year, of course, a couple of outs away from the Toronto Blue Jays winning the World Series. So as Andrew Fried told me, you try to cover for any eventuality that you can, but he said, really, people don't want to hear this, but good fortune, luck, or fortune in the wrong direction has a lot to do with how your year turns out in the postseason. And that's not saying like you can't control a lot because you still do. I don't believe in the Billy Beane theory that the whole thing is a crapshoot. I don't believe that, but don't discount there is luck involved.
Yeah, putting yourself in luck, in position to get lucky, obviously that is key. Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time. Great insight. The Phillies fans are going to love this because you're super positive about the Phillies.
Yeah, I am. I'm glad they brought this group back. I just know as I travel around, it's a kind of team that you can feel the vibe. I'm a big person on believing in a culture of a team, not just talent. And everybody I know this time of year looks at payroll. But I think the vibe of the team, that the best players in the team really are team players. I mean, Harper and Schwarber are like 2 of the best teammates anybody's ever had. Ask anybody who's played with them, they'll tell you the same thing. So they've got an established, really good culture there. And I'm glad it's basically the same group. Maybe, as I said, in the course of the season, gets a little bit younger. Never a bad thing.
All right, Tom Verduchi, appreciate the time. Great insight.
Thank you.
So there you go. One of the most respected voices in baseball. He's been doing it a long time at Fox Sports and MLB Network, SI.com. Tom Verduchi has no issue with the Phillies so-called running it back, and I would agree with him. I agreed on a lot of points that Tom Verduchi made there. Obviously, the Phillies lineup construction is a concern of mine. We talked about it last week. I do not want to see Alec Boehm in that cleanup spot. That has been something that I do believe is a concern. All right, let's talk about the Sixers. Why don't we? Sixers At the Atlanta Hawks tonight, no Joel Embiid, no Paul George, of course, and VJ Edgecombe, their star rookie, is doubtful. And look, the Sixers say Joel Embiid, that right oblique, will be reevaluated in about a week. That means at least another 4 games without Joel Embiid because of that right oblique strain. And, he's begun the individual strength and conditioning, but we've talked about this so many times. Joel Embiid has missed 47% of Sixers games. 47%. And this isn't something new. It is always something with this guy. And it's exhausting. And there's no more hot takes or any of that stuff on the Sixers situation. It's just the truth. I'm not even mad anymore at the Sixers situation. I'm just kind of numb. I'm just over it. And I think the fan base is over it too. I mean, this has been going on, 12 years, 13 years with Joel Embiid? And we've never gotten to a point where it's like Brett Brown used to say, we're going to deliver a healthy team and a healthy Joel Embiid to the playoffs. We've never been able to do it. We've never had this stud team that is all playing together. It's always something. It's always something. And obviously the Paul George thing this year, and he hasn't been great for the Sixers. I like Paul George coming here, but that really hasn't worked out. It is just time. It is just time, man. And the season isn't anger-inducing. It's just exhausting because this team is going nowhere. And if you think that the Sixers are going to somehow turn it on, you're delusional. And I hate to say it that way, but it is the truth. There's no scenario where the Sixers, who are the 6th seed right now, are going to magically turn it on in the playoffs. We've had that pipe dream for, 10 years, a decade worth of, okay, in the playoffs, we're going to turn it on. And, they came close that year with Jimmy Butler, and they lost on that weird bounce by Kawhi Leonard. But let's be honest with ourselves. The Sixers were not a better team. They were not better than the Raptors in that series. They just weren't. They weren't better than the Raptors. And they're not better than the Celtics, and they're not better than the Pistons, and they're not better than the Knicks. And so it's just time. It's time to move on from Joel Embiid. And this isn't a Daryl Morey situation. This is not a Nick Nurse situation. Those guys should not lose their jobs over this. Daryl Morey's done his job. He went star hunting. He tried to add talent. He's added talent in Paul George. It hasn't worked out. And there's been talks that he tried to go after Kawhi Leonard. I'm sure he did. Just kind of like Howie Roseman, you're going to make that call on guys, there's stud players around the league. Nick Nurse didn't forget how to coach. You can't coach a team, and you can't run a team that has your best player in and out. And you've heard Tyrese Maxey talk about it this year multiple times and just say, it's too much. It's hard. He's playing 4 or 5 different ways each night. And the last couple nights, obviously no George, no Embiid, no VJ Edgecombe. Kelly Oubre was out the other day. He's back tonight in Atlanta. It's just too much. You can't win like this. And the season's starting to wind down here, and you haven't had your core play consistently over and over and over again. I mean, Embiid has missed a ton of games. He's played only 33 games this season. He's missed close to 50% of games again. And then he comes back and, okay, is he going to get hurt again? Of course you don't know, but what are we doing? Let's move on. Just build around the Maxey and the Edgecombe and call it a day. You got to move on from Joel Embiid. And I don't think the fan base is going to be overly upset. I think it's just time. It's run its course. Like Andy Reid ran its course with the Eagles. Andy's an amazing coach. And Joel Embiid is an amazing individual player when he's healthy. Yes, he can put up a lot of points, but I don't think he's a winner. And the Sixers just cannot win with this situation. They just can't. When you don't know day in and day out, is he playing or is he not playing? You just can't. I mean, they have built everything around Joel Embiid. It just hasn't worked. They tried. It's time to move on for everybody's sake. Move on. Be done with it. You have to be real about the situation that you look what the Sixers had the other night against the Spurs. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. And I know they didn't have their players, but it's embarrassing. The Sixers became the first team in NBA history to lose 3 home games by 40 points or more in the same season after that embarrassing loss to the Spurs this week. It can't happen. Ever. And especially, when you talk about this team with Maxey and everything going on. And again, I know they didn't have all their players, but to have it 3 times, come on. Time to move on. And Maxey said it best. He said it best the other day. I don't think anything's acceptable. And he's right. He's totally right. They bounced back and they beat the Utah Jazz shorthanded. Yes, guys were upset and they rebounded but moral victories do not erase historically bad nights and weeks and stretches. And historically, this has been a bad run. The Sixers have tried this thing. It's been a decade plus, 12, 13 years of this. It's not happening. And it's not Daryl Morey's fault. Wasn't Doc Rivers' fault. Okay? And it's not Nick Nurse's fault. It's not. You can't blame those guys. Everything's being built around Joel Embiid. It has been. It's not working. And so tonight you have the Hawks, who are, of course, trying to keep things afloat. And there's a human element here of the locker room clearly misses Jared McCain. Now, I had no issue with the Sixers trading Jared McCain. I don't think he can play. Now, he's playing well with the Oklahoma City Thunder, but Maxey admitted that, the morale has been a little bit off since the Jared McCain trade. You have guys in and out of the lineup. The chemistry takes a hit, and he wasn't playing a lot anyway. But there was just something there that it's taken a hit. And Maxey's like, look, we're professionals. We're going to figure it out. And, but it has been off a little bit. Is it a big problem? I don't think it's a big problem, but it's among the many problems the Sixers have with consistency and guys. And that is a problem that Maxey's admitted. And Sixers fans, I get it if you're furious or just tired. I think we're past the even furious part. I think we're past the upset part. It's more of just tired. I don't know if there is outrage over the Sixers. It's just kind of like, hey, this is what it is. It's deja vu. It is. It really is. And, Maxey had 25 points against Utah. That's his 44th game this season with 25-plus points, second most in the NBA behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But do the Sixers miss Jared McCain? I don't think on the court they do. I really don't. But I think in the locker room they do. I mean, what Maxey said, he admits the Sixers miss his friend and a guy that they liked in that locker room. And the morale has been off. Listen to Tyrese Maxey on the state of the Philadelphia 76ers and the whole Jared McCain situation.
When we don't start fast, like defensively and aggressive and like the right way, that's when it happens. If you want me to be honest with you, it was like Orlando that did it to us once. Somebody else did it to us here. I can't really remember. Cleveland did it to us once. We don't start fast. We don't start fast. Like we start soft and we're not pressuring the ball and we're not getting to the ball and we giving up back cuts and stuff like that. When we start the games off like that, it's sometimes hard for us to catch back up. You know what I'm saying? And we can't do that. Especially we're 6 or whatever we are right now. You for sure can't do that in the playoffs. Every possession matters. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get that out of us. It happens. I think, you get popped about 5 times a year. You know what I'm saying? In the NBA, you got 82-game season. But we don't need it to happen again. I don't think anything is acceptable. You know what I'm saying? We can't just accept it. I talked about that all year. I feel like we can't just accept it. If you want to do that, then we'll be back in the same position we was in last year. We fought our tails off to be good enough to be in a situation right now to where we could, still make a playoff push and we can, get into the playoffs and without even being in the play-in. So it's we're not going to make it acceptable. It is definitely difficult. It's definitely a difficult task, especially when you're missing, guys. You know what I mean? It's hard, but sometimes you got to climb the mountain.
It definitely feels like since the West Coast trip, the energy's been a little bit off, I guess. Have you noticed anything in terms of just the morality of the team? Or
maybe a little bit. We just won 3 straight games, though. So it's I ain't about to, just harp on it too bad. It was tough. We lost however many straight. Then we won 3 straight. Now we lost 2 straight. I mean, it's the NBA. I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's hard. It's definitely, trade deadline was difficult, and it's life. But we moved on from it, and that's something that we have to put in our rearview mirror. If we're going to sit there and dwell on the trade deadline now, I think that was 3-4 weeks ago, however long ago it was, that ain't going to get us nowhere. You know what I'm saying? So,
have you noticed teammates dwelling on trade deadline and losing Jared?
I don't think so. I don't think we're dwelling on it. I mean, Jared was a close friend of ours, great teammate, great person. So I definitely think we miss him, of course. I mean, I ain't going to lie, say I don't miss Jared. But I'm happy for him. I watch him. OKC, make sure, I hope he does well every single night that he plays, except when he plays us, of course, you know what I'm saying? But, that is not, this is a business at the end of the day. I've seen many people traded that I don't want to get traded, and whatever the case may be, people left in free agency. That you can't dwell on that, you know what I'm saying? You got to focus on the people that's in this building. These are the people that you're going to be with for the rest of the season. If they bring somebody else in, whatever the case may be, but these are the people that's going to be with you for the rest of this season and the rest of this stretch run. If you want to try to make a run at doing something special, then you got to focus on that, and that's what I think we're still focused on. I don't think anybody's trying to dwell on it or do different things like that. I think it's just tough, man. You got guys in and out lineups. That makes it even more difficult, but we're going to keep pushing. I'm going to be here every night. As long as I can move around and try to play and do those different things, I'm going to fight through the adversity, and I'll be here and try to keep leading this group.
How do you not love Tyrese Maxey? I mean, that's what you want, and he is emerging as a superstar. He just is. And does he have as much talent in his body as Joel Embiid? No. But you can't win with Joel. You just can't. And it's beyond the point of frustration. It's exhausting, and it's over. And it's time to move on. I mean, Embiid's going to miss yet another game tonight. Another game tonight with the oblique issue. It's always something. He's missed. By the end of this week, it's going to be 50% of their games. You can't win with the guy. Just move on and be done. Be done. I don't think anyone's going to be upset about it. I just don't. It's time. Build around Edgecombe. Build around Maxey. Call it a day. I mean, Jared McCain, he even admitted that the Sixers fans' frustrations when he was traded, he's like, I get it. I heard this from McCain. He said, quote, I'm right there with the fans. I was scared. It was hard to process, so I'm forever still grateful for Philly. You don't get to say goodbye. It's really like a breakup. Now, let's not overplay the Jared McCain thing. I know he's off to a decent start with the Thunder. I just don't think the guy can play. I just don't. And I don't think he's the answer in the future and this and that. Would he even see extended minutes right now with everything going on with Edgecombe, who's doubtful again tonight, with Paul George out, and with the whole Embiid thing? Sure, I think you would have seen a little bit more. But I just, in the long run, I don't think McCain can play. I just don't. I really, really don't. And I think you got to figure that out and make a move. All right, we're going to get to Brad Feinberg in just a second. First, Parks Casino is the casino of my choice, a great place for a night of headline entertainment, award-winning dining. Just announced, Parks Casino welcoming the Gene Simmons Band July 24th, plus comedian Andrew Dice Clay May 16th. Saturday, June 12th, the All McCartney Live, a tribute to Sir Paul McCartney. Tickets still available for these headliners at Parks Casino. And coming up March 14th, next Saturday, a week from today, comedian Tracy Morgan will be here from Saturday Night Live. You know him. April 3rd, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members Cheap Trick, they'll take the stage. Saturday, April 18th, Grammy winner Melissa Etheridge. And May 14th, Jacob Dylan and the Wallflowers. And in August, over the summer, Australian Pink Floyd will be here. Then in November, Grand Funk Railroad. ParksCasino.com to buy tickets. You must be 21 years old. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Speaking of gambling, let's bring in our gambling expert, Brad Feinberg. He is a great follow on Brad's Best Bets on X. Let's bring in Brad. Welcome him back to the program today here on Bet Park Saturday from the Sportsbook in Parks Casino. What's happening, Brad?
Jeff, good to see you. How are you, buddy?
You too. Great seeing you. We've talked a lot on this show today. There's been a lot of buzz, a lot of smoke about the A.J. Brown situation this week. And sometimes you'll say where there's smoke, there is fire. Have you seen any of the odds with the A.J. Brown and the Eagles situation moving in one direction or another based on where A.J. Brown may play next season? Have you seen anything move with the sportsbook with the odds?
I think the odds are sitting right around 50-50 right now, Jeff, in terms of does he play for Philadelphia or not. But I think the New England thing, from what I've been told, it was real. Like, they just wanted they didn't want this year's first-round pick. They wanted, because it's the 31st pick in the draft versus it's almost like a second, right? But, I mean, that was a real offer. And, it's funny, you're seeing, Jeff, let's look at the trades that we've seen so far in the NFL. We saw DJ Moore. I never thought DJ Moore would ever get a 2. And when I say ever, like, I would have probably put 6-figure bet on that. I really would have. That's how confident I would have been. I never thought in a million years DJ Moore, coming off the years he's come off of, would ever get a number 2 pick. But I guess because the wide receiver market is so limited, Jeff, people are willing to overpay. So I think when we see that, and now you see Max Crosby get 2 number 1s, that at least I think is deserved. But I think that A.J. Brown's value, Jeff, has only gone up. And I think when you see something like happens with DJ Moore getting a 2, Howie's like, okay, DJ Moore's worth a 2. You're going to pay a heck of a lot more than that for a guy who's 10 times the player.
And so if you're making a bet on this A.J. Brown situation, which way would you lean?
I think they're going to trade him.
So you would say trade?
Yeah, I think A.J. Brown's days are probably going to be done here. Because I think what I think is going to happen, Jeff, I should say, is it's like, I think people are saying, okay, here's what we thought the landscape was going to be, but here's what the landscape really is. Like, for example, DJ Moore, you're like, okay, never thought he would get a 2, but that's what he's worth. The Patriots offered a 1 and a 3 for AJ. It was turned down. So you're saying to yourself, okay, the price is this is the price to do business. And now you see Max Crosby get 2 1s, a fellow superstar at least, like A.J. Brown, granted a more valuable one. But I think that you're going to see A.J. Brown get traded for a substantial high price, much more than what I thought he was initially going to get.
Yeah, and before you came on, I was saying the exact opposite. I think the Eagles should not trade A.J. Brown, and I think they will not trade A.J. Brown. And my reasoning really was it creates a big cap hit, which, look, Howie Roseman, and they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out, whether before June 1st or after June 1st, they would figure it out. But it creates complications because you have other guys that you need to sign that are coming up on that first-year rookie contract. The other thing for me is it makes your team worse. And you cannot guarantee you're going to get another stud receiver that, even if A.J. Brown, and we've seen his production decline, but that's not all on A.J.'s fault. So he also, you have to remember, takes the pressure off of Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. And he's also a guy who Jalen Hurts has gone to time and time again to ice games in the final minute, in the final seconds. He's the icer. And so if you take that away, you cannot guarantee you're going to get another stud receiver that is anywhere near his production and his dominance level to come in here, whether it's a rookie in the draft, whether it's a free agent, or whether it's another trade. You can't guarantee it. And when you're in the Super Bowl window, your window to win is small. Why take that risk over a few draft picks?
Jeff, I hear what you're saying, and just for the record, again, I agree A.J. Brown is a great player, but I guess, how old is he, 29 now, I'm guessing? I don't know if I have it in front of me, but my opinion is maybe he has 2 more elite years left, and if I can get a first where I get a player on a player-friendly deal for 5 years, and maybe I get, let's say, number 2, where I get another player-friendly contract cheap for 5 years, guys who are 9 years younger than A.J. Brown, I would make the trade. And again, part of the reason I say that, Jeff, is, and again, respectfully, I don't think the Eagles are in the Super Bowl window. I think we've seen, again, I could be dead wrong, and when we continue to talk about this, Jeff, we'll see how it plays out. I do not think the Eagles are going to contend for Super Bowl this year. I feel very strongly on that. I don't believe in the quarterback at this point, and I don't think they are going to be in a Super Bowl contender. So if it was me, plus you save $35 million a year that you're paying him in terms of your cap, I look at it like I'm getting 2 younger assets, 8 years, 9 years younger. I save a boatload of cap money, and I Again, look, it's either you believe or you don't believe. I don't think the Eagles are in that Super Bowl window. Again, I hope to be proven wrong, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and that's the interesting point, because if you're saying you don't think they're in the window, and if that is the case, then yes, I would move A.J. Brown.
Sure.
And so I would be on your side with that, but I go the other way, and I go,
I'm in the minority here. I'm in the minority, Jeff, for sure.
You said last week, and say it again, because I think this is interesting, is that the over-under came out on Eagles wins next year, and so run this by me. So 10.5, and you went, you said you were pounding the under, right?
Correct.
And so where did you fall on that?
Well, Jeff, again, I think, again, I personally think they're going to have one of these 6-11, 7-10 kind of years. Oof. I really do. Yeah, I do. I don't think this is going to be a good team next year. And I like the under 10.5. I will say this, Jeff, and I wanted to get this on, a good segue to do it. One of my favorite futures, and the line, again, I want you to remember this, write this down. And when we talk in September, like, Brad, that was a good call by you, because I'm making this. The Cowboys, I think, were 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. I will say the Cowboys come September 1st, that first digit will be a 1, not a 4. And it's so easy to see. I always think, it's not that I'm smart, but you saw they came in second to get Max Crosby. They're going to add 2 first-round picks they have, okay? They're going to get, in my opinion, at least 2 really good free agents. I think Trey Hendrickson's probably the most likely landing spot is now Dallas. In my opinion, that team's going to add 4 impact defensive players. They already have the best kicker in the league. They already have the best offense in the NFL. If you add 4 good defensive players to a team that has the best offense, or call them top 5 if you want to be mean, how's that team not going to be good next year? That's my favorite Super Bowl pick of the year. Dallas, Jerry Jones is going to rob Peter to pay Paul, defer money, kind of like the Saints did, and the Saints are now paying the price for it many years to come. Mickey Loomis used to do that as their GM, and it eventually caught up to them. I'm sure Dallas, eventually it's going to catch up to them. They're going to spread all these monies out, and for years, when Jerry Jones is maybe not even with them anymore, whoever's running the team then will feel the brunt of that. But I think he's going all in. He's 85 years old. He's like, I don't care. I want to win, Jeff. Dallas to win the Super Bowl. Very good bet, in my opinion.
Wow. And so you talk about the Super Bowl, and I want to ask you this. If A.J. Brown were to be traded, which you think is going to happen,
I do.
How much does that change the Eagles' Super Bowl odds right here on the side?
Significantly. Absolutely significantly.
Where do they stand right now?
I don't have in front of me. I think they're around, I'm guessing, I can't look it up right now where I'm at, but I think maybe they're probably around that 14-15-1 area. They trade A.J. Brown, I think they'll go 25-1, somewhere in that ilk. Because you take a major player like that off the team, at least 20-1. You take a major player like that off the team, and as you said, Jeff, I agree with you. If you think you're in that window, I don't make this trade. I absolutely agree with you, because you're just not going to find that guy to replace him. You're just not. You just look what happened. The Titans traded him. The Titans are actually, when they traded A.J. Brown, people don't remember, weren't they in the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill? And the Chiefs beat them, and they were down by I think that they were actually beating the Chiefs.
It was a shocking trade that the Titans, and I know Mike Vrabel was furious. Mike Vrabel was furious. And who knows, they could end up, being together once again now in New England with Green Bay. But, furious. And so, look, Howie Roseman is always, whatever you want to phrase it, like star hunting. And so could they pull off another deal? But I do wonder, let's say it were to go down to 20-1 or 25-1. I wonder then, let's say before the next shoe were to drop, whether good or bad or adding or subtracting, would that be then a good bet to bet on the Eagles and say, okay, I'm going to bet on the Eagles to make the Super Bowl at 20-1 or 25-1? That's a great bet at that point.
Well, but here's the thing. To me, I'd rather take 15-1 with A.J. Brown than 20-1 without him.
Why?
Personally. Well, because, again, I agreed with what you said, Jeff. You said he's a great player, and I think he's great, not good. By the way, he's a player to me. If he was playing with Matt Stafford, he can put up Puka Nacua stats. I don't have even a 1% doubt on that. I think playing with Jalen Hurts.
Quarterback. So you think it's on the quarterback?
Jeff, I don't think that's even an opinion. I think that's kind of pretty obvious. If he was on a different team, he absolutely would be, in my opinion, putting up with, if he was with Joe Burrow, if he was with Matt Stafford, he'd be the best receiver in the league. When I say best, I mean in that Jamar Chase, in that, you look what happened. Listen, Jeff, here's my proof. I rest my case. And I don't think it's an opinion. And I'm not know-it-all kind of person, but certain things I just think are kind of obvious. Look what happened with Justin Jefferson, right? He played with, I guess it was who did he start with the career with? I don't even know who he started his career with in Minnesota.
Kirk Cousins?
Was it Kirk Cousins? Yeah, and he was the best receiver. And then even with Sam Darnold, who's obviously played great for them, he was the number one receiver, became the highest paid receiver. Then he plays with J.J. McCarthy. Gets completely... I mean, he couldn't do anything. His stats were very A.J. Brown-like, right? He went from 1,600 yards to 1,000. Not that he stinks. He didn't become worse. But he's playing with a quarterback who couldn't get him the ball. And he was a guy who arguably was considered to be the number one receiver before last year. To me, playing with Jalen Hurts... Now, again, also Eagles, in fairness to Jalen, Eagles, they're trying to run the ball more. It's a different philosophy than what Minnesota was doing. My point being, if you're not playing with one of those quarterbacks that's elite, like a Joe Burrow with Dak Prescott, in terms of an elite thrower of the ball, to me, you're look at George Pickens. Did George Pickens suddenly become better, Jeff? Did he become better by going from Pittsburgh to Dallas? Heck no. He went to a point playing with a quarterback who's as good as anyone in the league in terms of throwing the ball. I know people hate Dak. You can hate him all you want. He's a really good player. And George Pickens was a top 5 receiver because he's played with the quarterback and get him the ball. To me, A.J. Brown, if he plays with one of those kind of QBs, he's absolutely, Jeff, as good as any receiver in the league.
I just don't know how everyone is so down on Jalen Hurts. And I look at it like this.
Everyone is. I think it's just me. I
think everyone's down on Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
And I just go, okay, like if you really look at it, the offensive line was not great last year, caused a lot of issues, number one. I think there was a lot of confusion with Kevin Patullo, and he talked about it in this frame of reference, saying it's been challenging having all these play callers and offensive coordinators since I've been with Philadelphia, and of course, going back to college, Oklahoma and Alabama. And so it sounded like maybe he was just had a year where he was just like lost with a lot of that. And maybe that's all baloney. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
The other thing I would tell you is Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field in those 2 Super Bowls, in my opinion. And so he could have been Super Bowl MVP in 2022.
Absolutely.
He was Super Bowl MVP in 2024. He can make every big throw. I have had player after player, former players that do not hold back. Yeah. Even Nick Sirianni, which, okay, he's biased, says that Jalen Hurts can make every big throw. Wilbert Montgomery, Eagles legend and former NFL coach with the Lions and everything else, tell me, the legendary Eagles running back said Jalen Hurts is one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. He has one of the best deep balls. And so I've heard guys say over and over again, former players, current players say Jalen Hurts is a great deep ball. And so I do think Jalen Hurts can make every play. And so this whole idea that Jalen Hurts, he's not elite, this and that. Look, is he a top 5 quarterback? Probably not, but you're not bringing in one of these other top 5 quarterbacks. So I go, kind of like I say to my kids, you get what you get, you don't get upset. Jalen Hurts has been a very good quarterback.
Well, let me ask you a question, Jeff. And again, and I always enjoy debating with you because I have a lot of respect for your opinion. But let me ask you this: how is it? Everything you said, I respect. But let me ask you a question: how is it humanly possible? What I'm about to say, I want you to really think about this: that a professional starting quarterback that you say is all the flowers you just threw him can have multiple games this year, where he doesn't complete a pass in the second half. To me, that is absolutely impossible. That's like Steph Curry missing 50 straight free throws. That's impossible. It can't happen.
But
he did
I would
multiple
tell you,
times.
But Brad, I would tell you, in the Bills game in particular, what you're talking about, if you watch the tape, the Eagles offensive line got beat off the snap every single time. The offensive line got destroyed there. So then it takes away Jalen Hurts' ability to get the ball out. It takes away their ability to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. And the domino effect, you've heard Andy Reid and successful coaches say it for years and years and years. It starts in the trenches. It starts up front. And
that's fair.
If there's massive breakdowns, and there was in that Bills game, if you go back and watch the Bills game in that second half, the Eagles got beat on that line time and time again. That has a direct effect on Jalen Hurts. So you cannot expect him to be Superman when you have that going on.
Well, Superman, Jeff, in completing a pass, I don't think I'm saying Superman. I'm saying, can you go 1 for 25? Can you complete one pass?
I agree.
That's not Superman. I don't think I'm saying that.
I agree with you, and I'm not taking all the blame off Jalen, but to put all the blame on Jalen because
No,
of that situation,
not all of
I
it.
think is incredibly unfair.
Yeah, no, that's and Jeff, I agree with you. Listen, I always say, to me, the thing that makes your IQ higher than anything else in football is when you have a good offensive line. It makes you look so much smarter, right? When you have time to throw the ball, it raises everyone's IQ. The play caller, the head coach, the quarterback, the receivers, the running, every single thing. It's like the offensive line is your heart, or it's the engine in the car, and that is everything. And they didn't have that last year, Jeff, and that's very fair. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, you know what's funny? You look, here's the best way I could put it. I don't know how old Jalen Hurts is. I don't know if he's 28. I don't know. I don't know his age. But to me, he's like an old whatever he is. That's the best way I could phrase it. I feel like he's taken like a lot of punishment. He's tough as tough gets. I mean, I have total respect for the man as a player. And before last year, and I'm giving Miss Flowers, I think his 3-year stretch the year that they lost to Kansas City, I thought he was the best player in the NFL. I thought he really had a good chance with him. And I agree. In the Super Bowl, I thought he was the best player. That was one of the best Super Bowl games I've ever seen a player play, except for that one unfortunate play where he turned the ball over. But I thought he played as well as anyone's ever played in the Super Bowl. And over this 3-year stretch, I think he was a top 5 quarterback, actually. But I felt like I saw a regression last year, and maybe large part of it is the O-line. But I'm going to say to you, Jeff, how do you know the O-line's going to get better? Let me ask you that.
You don't. And did Jalen Hurts have his best year last year? Of course not. And I just go, okay, like guys are going to have off years. The whole team was off offensively. And so,
does Joe Burrow have an off year though, Jeff? Does
Joe Burrow's been injured?
Does Patrick Mahomes have an off year? Does Josh Allen have an off year? Because when you call them elite players don't. Did Aaron Rodgers when he's in his prime, or Tom Brady or Peyton Manning when they're prime? Those guys, Drew Brees, those guys don't have off years. So my point is, if you're going to call him elite, then he shouldn't have an off year.
Well, I wouldn't call Jalen Hurts necessarily like I wouldn't put him in that category. Right. But I would put him in the category right below. And I go, that's not a bad place to be because
no, not at all.
He can get you to the Super Bowl. He can win you a Super Bowl. And I go, by the way, like this isn't fantasy football. Like your ability, like to go, okay, Jalen Hurts is good. Is there better quarterbacks out there? Of course there is. Can you get those quarterbacks? Like that's a whole nother conversation. Let's talk about the Sixers. Let's talk about the Sixers situation. Tonight the Hawks are 6.5-point favorites. No Joel Embiid out with the oblique injury. Of course, no Paul George. Doubtful is VJ Edgecombe. I imagine you're not picking
Atlanta or pass. Atlanta or pass. Although I do like a prop. I like Bona for the Sixers over 6.5 points. I think they made the correct call. They started him last game over Drummond. He played, I think, 29 minutes. Drummond only played like 7. Bona to me is actually a guy that can score and do some things. 6.5 points is too low, Jeff. I say he gets double digits. Give me him over 6.5 points tonight as my favorite prop bet of the night. I think that's a really good bet. But the Sixers, Jeff, I heard you talking about, and I know we've discussed it. One thing I could not agree with you more on is the whole Embiid thing. I would do what the Eagles did with Carson Wentz, what the Sixers did with Markelle Fultz. Obviously, Embiid was 1 trillion times more effective than those players. But my point being is, I would wash my hands of it, move on, accept that it. They said the 7 stages of grief. I would just say it happened. We move on. I cannot go through this one more day, let alone one more year. I mean, I wouldn't care what I got. I wouldn't care what I had to give up. I wouldn't care about the PR hit. I wouldn't care if he won 27 championships the next 27 years in my face laughing at me. I could not have him on the roster going forward. For all the reasons you said.
I think that would be a disaster, right? Like if Embiid went to, I don't know, the Clippers. I'm making up a team. If Joel Embiid went to another team and then all of a sudden he's healthy and made a ridiculous, like that would be, don't get me wrong, as much as I do believe that it's just time. And it's not some sort of hot take. It's just like,
I agree.
It's just a reality. I think that would be a disaster. But
it would be like, look, when Bill Walton broke his foot 7 straight years for Portland, they finally had to say, you're MVP, you're one of the greatest 50 players of all time. But it's just, we can't go through this again. And credit to Bill Walton. He got his second career as a good man off the bench for the Celtics, won multiple titles with the Celtics, and again, had a nice second end as a role player. but to me, I think for all the reasons you said, Jeff, Joel Embiid has showed again. There's no one. He's not hiding. This is who he is now. He misses at least half the games. You can't go through every single day with your star player. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? You can't do it. It's hard psychologically on every other person on that team. Forget the fan base. Obviously, it's hard on them. But I would just make that difficult decision. Have a Joel Embiid night. Have him retire his number when he comes back and thank him for everything he's done. But for all the reasons you said, I would just move on and whatever happened and whatever happens in his career, I would live with it because it's so painful going through this every single year.
Yeah, you just can't win with it. And
you can't win with it.
And so the Hawks, you're either betting Hawks or you're not.
It would be Hawks or pass. I mean, the Hawks are actually trying to win right now. Sixers, it's not that, first of all, you said a great, I heard you talking, Jeff, about first team ever to lose 3 games at home by 40 points. Really think about that, Jeff. Wait, let me ask you a question. Because I've heard you talk about a lot of things in the Sixers, but never heard you talk about this. I always think some guys get like good PR, like just from the media, where they're made to be better, or bad PR, or they're made to be worse, just because the media likes them or doesn't like them. Let me ask you a question, I'm just Nick Nurse has this PR where people treat him like he's a great coach, not a good coach, a great coach. And again, I don't pretend to be some expert where I can decipher, okay, Nick Nurse called this play versus, when Greg Popovich was coaching, he would have called that play, where I could say, there's the difference between these two coaches. I don't pretend to know that. But I have not been impressed with Nick Nurse even this much. And I'm curious what your take is on that. And part of that, again, losing 3 games at home by 40 points, that to me has to be somewhat being prepared and coaching. I don't know if you agree, disagree, but I'd love to hear your take on that.
I think that this team could win if Joel Embiid and everyone's healthy, this team would have won a championship with Brett Brown or Doc Rivers or Nick Nurse. And I don't think the coaching situation matters. I don't think it's Nick Nurse's fault. I don't think he should be fired. And I see the same goes with Daryl Morey. And I have just looked at this as it's really just on one guy, and it's on Embiid. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's Embiid's fault or whatever. It's just the situation.
It's just a situation.
And even Tyrese Maxey's talked about it time and time again this season. It is so difficult for him to play 4 different roles. It's difficult to have guys in and out of the lineup. Now you don't have Paul George as well. You can't judge Doc Rivers. You can't judge Nick Nurse. You can't judge Doug Collins or Brett Brown. You can't judge them when you don't have your best player that the whole team was built around. Yeah. It's completely unfair. And yes, if they were all playing together and there were certain situations, with 10 seconds left, why did you run this play or what? What are you doing here? Then you can make a fair and accurate assessment. I don't think it's fair to judge Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is capable, obviously, of winning an NBA championship.
Yeah, he won one.
He's one of the greatest coaches in the league right now. And I just don't think, same goes for Doc Rivers. I mean, Doc Rivers was made out to be, not a great coach when he was here. And people had this thing about Doc Rivers. And I'm like, Doc Rivers is a good coach. What do you want him to do? Ben Simmons was a disaster. The Joel Embiid situation, I would say, when you're talking about trying to win championships, has been a disaster. And yes, he's a great regular season player, but you cannot judge the coach, in my opinion, from everything going on. Joel Embiid's missed, more than half of the games in his whole career. So I think it's
crazy.
Let's finish up with college basketball.
Yes, sir.
Villanova closing out the regular season today. Started at noon. They're 12.5-point favorites at home against Xavier. Obviously, this game's about to wrap up, but how did you like this game?
Didn't really. It's funny. Villanova hurt my feelings, Jeff, last week against St. John's. They hurt my bankroll. Not only my feelings, hurt my bankroll. They got absolutely just torn apart by St. John's. I was really surprised by that. There are a couple games I do like today, Jeff. It's funny. I'm actually right now in California, so I don't think these games started yet. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but BYU's playing at home against Texas Tech. Now BYU is in a little bit of a funk. They started off as a top 10 team, and I want to say in their last 7 games, maybe they're 3-4, 2-5. They've been struggling, but at home, laying 2.5 points without no Toppin is done for the year towards ACL, unfortunately, for Texas Tech. I think it's a great get-well spot for BYU. I think BYU wins this game by double digits. not forget 2.5. I think they win this game pretty easily. I bet BYU. It's a game I like quite a bit. And then there's a couple other good matchups, Jeff. Kentucky's playing Florida. Now, Florida's been great. I mean, they're one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and they're playing terrific. But I think Kentucky at home taking 6. I think they can keep this game tight. I won't be surprised at all if Florida wins, but I think Kentucky keeps it within the number. And one of the last game I'll give you, Virginia. And again, I hope these games didn't start. I apologize. I did this stuff all before I woke up, like hours ago. Virginia is playing. Louisville is playing Miami of Florida. Miami, Florida at home, laying a point. I think these teams are even. I'll take the team at home laying 1 point at home against Louisville. I think Miami wins this game just because of home floor. I thought this line should have been closer to 3.5, 4. Give me the Hurricanes.
And I'm going to mention this one, too, if you know anything about this one. But a little bit of a rivalry in the Big Five. LaSalle St. Joe's, the Hawks, 9.5-point favorites at home. Rivalry game for bettors. I imagine there's not a lot of action in Big Five rivalry games anymore.
Yeah, well, not necessarily, Jeff. Yeah, it's funny. I used to, my dad used to say I used to go to the Palestra, and I used to love the Big Five games. And I remember back when, I grew up in Philly, and I remember the Big Five. I used to remember reading the Philadelphia Daily News, Philadelphia Inquirer, and seeing the Big Five standings, and it meant something. And I was always Villanova, was my favorite of the Big Five teams. But I always rooted for all 5 in the tournament. Temple, LaSalle, Penn. Didn't mean it's who. I would just always root for all the Big Five teams. But yeah, I mean, listen, games like that, Jeff, for sure, not going to be as heavily bet as, let's say, a North Carolina Duke, which is one of the more marquee games. But anytime there's value, people are looking for it. But I think St. Joe's, again, it's showing in a line, clearly the better team.
Clearly. All right. Well, Brad Feinberg, we appreciate you joining us. Great insight on some great bets out there to make here at Parks Casino. Brad Feinberg, a great follow at Brad's Best Bets on X. We appreciate it, Brad.
Thank you, Jeff, so much. Good luck to everyone out there. Thank you again, Jeff.
You too. All right. If you want to play, it is time to play. Join me on the BetParks online casino and sportsbook app, where there's always another way to win. Live betting is better on the BetParks app. Bet while you can watch all the action. Bet player performances. Bet game by game, by quarters, and much more. Right now, new casino users up to $1,000 bonus back in their first 24 hours. Plus, get 250 bonus spins on Good Heavens or Little Demon Mega Collectum over the course of 10 consecutive days. Yes, 250 bonus spins. Make your time worth it. You can have a lot of fun with these games. Play all the hot slots like Huff and Puff and Cash Eruption and much more. The BetParks online casino and sportsbook app, you can play real casino games as well for real money, like blackjack, roulette, craps, and much more right on your phone. Plus, bet on your favorite teams. Sixers, you may not want to touch the Sixers tonight like Brad just talked about against the Hawks, but if you want to bet on the Sixers against the Sixers, you can do so tonight. Also, college hoops, soccer, golf, MMA, and much more. The BetParks Online Casino Sportsbook app, where there's always another way to win. You must be 21 years old in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan. New users only. TCs apply. See betparks.com for details. Casino bonus must be wagered. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So a lot we have talked about today on this show here on BetParks Saturday at the Sportsbook at Parks Casino here on the PHOY Sports YouTube page. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky. All right, so we've talked a lot about the A.J. Brown situation. And I say you give A.J. Brown a chance with Sean Mannion and this team. I think you have no other choice because I still think you're in the Super Bowl window. There's a legitimate football argument that Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley would thrive if Sean Mannion, as the new offensive coordinator, can get things going with A.J. Brown in this offense. And it comes down to the quarterback situation. It comes down to the scheme and the discipline and the offensive line and the run game. Here's my case. My case is pretty simple here. I mean, the quarterback designing the offense around Jalen Hurts. I think that's obvious, right? Mannion spent years in the NFL as a backup, including time with the LA Rams under Sean McVay and the Minnesota Vikings. And the backup quarterback is also usually a brilliant offensive mind because they spend years studying the defensive looks, breaking down protections, helping the starters prepare as well as helping themselves prepare. So they have an interesting perspective, almost similar as a coaching perspective. I think that's going to help Jalen Hurts here, just like Kellen Moore was able to help Jalen Hurts, and they were to win a Super Bowl with Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore played, right? So I think the McVay system can unlock things for Jalen Hurts. And Mannion's background is rooted in the McVay-Shanahan tree, which emphasizes on the wide zone running, the play action, the motion before the snap, the misdirection. That will take pressure off Jalen Hurts. And it'll open things up. I truly believe that. And we're going to find out. And none of us know, is this going to work under Sean Mannion? He's never done it before. He doesn't have a proven track record. But I'm going to put my trust in Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie that they have hired good coaches over the years. When they've got it wrong, they've corrected it. And I think they've corrected it. And we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But you have to develop a system to get Jalen Hurts going, get this offense going, get the defense to play Saquon Barkley honest so that the running game can become a threat again. And a lot of it will be predicated on health. Are the Eagles healthy? So if you can get Barkley going, the outside runs, the touch and stretch plays, the play action screens, the swing routes that allows Barkley to use his explosiveness in the open field in space. And so if you can get that going and the run game can take the pressure off the pass game, you're going to have a brilliant offense this year. But I think you need A.J. Brown for this. I really do. And the play action could elevate Jalen Hurts in this offense. The McVay style that thrives on that heavy play action, it could be a huge advantage for Jalen Hurts. It really could be. You know, when you have defenses playing the pass and playing the run honest, and it's not predictable, which you heard things come out that the Eagles were predictable at times. Guys knew what was coming. I mean, yeah, there's the theory of, okay, you know what's coming, you still got to stop it. But if you add the layer of we're not sure what's coming, that's huge. That's huge. And having more pre-snap motion, easier reads potentially, that's going to create defensive issues for the opposition. I just think it will. It'll take pressure off Jalen Hurts. It'll take pressure off A.J. Brown, take pressure off Saquon Barkley, take the pressure off Devontae Smith. And, of course, the root of it is the health. You need the offensive line to be healthy. They were not healthy last year. You need Cam Jurgens and Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson to be healthy and to protect Jalen. You really do. But the bottom line here is that the Sean Mannion offense, I think, can be special. We don't know. It could be a dud. It could be a disaster. I'm not going to go that way. I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to believe that they're going to figure this out with A.J. Brown, and they're going to go in the right direction. And they're going to be better than last year. Because last year was bad. It was frustrating. And I was a big guy out here saying, okay, they're going to figure it out. It'll work itself out, and it never did. But Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, they can evolve, and they can produce. And Howie Roseman believes that. Here's what Howie Roseman said about Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley evolving and playing under new Eagles offensive coordinator Sean Mannion. Take a listen.
Well, he's always continuing to improve work ethic, looking for ways, incremental ways to get better. This system, we think, is going to be really good for him as well as a lot of our other players. He's always looking for a system of play, and we think that we have that. And so just really excited to get him back in the spring and get the reps and continue to learn the principles that Sean's looking to bring to our offense and go from there.
My experience with great football players is you come in and you're like, hey, Saquon, we're going to run inside zone. Yeah, he's going to be really good at it. Hey, we're going to run gap schemes. He's going to be really good at it. Hey, we're going to run wide zone. He's going to be really good at it. Hey, we're going to run the option. He's going to be really good at it. Hey, we're going to split you out wide. He's just a great football player. And so guys that are great football players can fit into a lot of different offenses. And Saquon, regardless of the schemes, I think you saw that, in some of the things that we've done. Like he's been highly productive in many of the schemes that, whether it's gap schemes, whether it's inside zones, whether it's, pin and pulls, whether it's toss cracks. Every one of these things, I'm picturing him breaking a big run off on that. And so that's a common theme with good football players. They can fit into a lot of different schemes. So I believe he'll be, exceptional at that. Yeah, I think Saquon, I think we saw the athletic ability, the vision, everything with Saquon that we saw, when we were watching him with the Giants or what we saw in 2024. And so, listen, we as a whole, we didn't reach our ultimate goal of being able to be at the top of the mountain. Only one team was able to do that this year, and so we all have this thing that we want to get back and prove ourselves again. That's what you have to do in this league, right? You don't win. You get back up and you try to prove yourself again. And I think that's everybody's mindset on this team. I'm excited about when these guys get back into the building and I know we're going to feel that of like that, just, hey, we're hungry for more. And Saquon's no different. I think that we're all going to feel that way. I'm sorry. You always want the guys that.
What?
The Eagles are going to be hungry, and we saw how the Hard Knocks ended last year when the Eagles were eliminated in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts telling Nick Sirianni, I know we're going to be back. We're going to be back. And I think Jalen Hurts is the ultimate competitor. And, he wants to be the so-called Michael Jordan. And I think they'll be motivated. They'll figure it out. Maybe some stubbornness or things like that went on behind the scenes last year will not be the case now. And maybe Sean Mannion can unlock this and everything that happened. But I think the Eagles are going to come in as that underdog, hungry mentality. And I think that's good for Philadelphia. I do. And I think it's going to be good for the Phillies to have that same mentality. Because the last 2 years, I think it's been embarrassing for the Phillies. And so let's switch gears into the Phillies. I think what's happened the last 2 years with the Phillies is going to make the Phillies hungry. Because October, embarrassing. I'm sorry. That was embarrassing. And for it to happen 2 years in a row, and maybe you got a bad draw on the Dodgers last year, but come on. Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, they didn't hit. Your studs didn't hit. And there's a portion of the fan base out there that I think is upset at the Phillies for, the so-called running it back stuff. And I would tell you, relax, because Phillies fans and sports talk radio and everyone panicking on social media, I do say just relax a minute. And I get you don't want your hearts broken again in October. And I get there may not be a lot of excitement with the regular season less than 3 weeks away. But this team won 95 games. They've won 96 games in back-to-back years. They didn't forget how to win. This team can win 90-plus games again. This is a playoff team. Could they take a major step backwards and be a disaster? Oh, of course it could. I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't. I think this Phillies team is going to be a great team, and it's just going to come down to October. I really believe that because you have Bryce, you have Trey Turner, you have Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto. Are they aging stars? Maybe. But I think they're going to be hungry. And I think, okay, you get knocked out early, a couple years in a row. I think that sends a wake-up call. And I think the whole elite, not elite situation with Bryce, I don't care what Bryce Harper says, that guy is going to come out and be a monster this season. I do believe it. And yeah, maybe he doesn't need extra motivation, but I think that's baloney. I think when you're Dave Dombrowski, president of the Phillies, says what he said, whether he meant it or not, and I don't think anyone's arguing what Dave Dombrowski said, I think Bryce Harper is going to have a monster season. But the only thing that matters to me is October. And October has been brutal. And it's a random month that things can go sour for a week. And they've gone sour on the Phillies for multiple weeks in October in multiple seasons. It can't happen. You can't have your best player go 1 for 25 or 3 for 25 or 4 for. You need them to come up big. You need it to happen. And, they try to get Bo Bichette. Didn't work. Okay, fine. Didn't work. Move on. But I don't blow up this contender because of the October frustration. They're still in a window. You got to trust your stars and tweak around the edges, which I think the Phillies have done. Now, one former Phillies star who knows how to get it done in October, Shane Victorino, the flying Hawaiian, and he threw his 2 cents into this Phillies situation, as well as the Justin Crawford situation, the heir apparent in center field. So let's listen to what Shane Victorino has to say about the Phillies and this whole so-called running it back and where the Phillies stand as well as the future center fielder of the Phillies.
This year's club, Shane?
I like it a lot. I like the fact that, people have kind of put this team, behind the 8 ball. They're definitely not the sought-after team that they were a few years ago, which is great. I mean, I think it's awesome the fact that, sometimes being the team that nobody's talking about is always a great one. But, I think the biggest thing with this team is, they've had an opportunity every year, the regular season, to be good, but, came a little short. And I heard JT's, interview yesterday talk about that. And you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, your end goal is to be a world champion, so. But I'm excited. I really like this team. I think that, as I said, people have kind of put them behind the 8 ball, but I'm really excited for them.
You spend time. He looks like he's got all the tools.
He's got more than just the tools. I really like the kid. I think that, we had the opportunity to work a few times this offseason in hitting in the cages there in Vegas. And, his approach, his mentality, how he goes about the game. I think that's what's going to separate him. His ability and his talents are one piece, but I think the way he looks at the game, I think he's got a, chance, and Philadelphia's hopefully got a superstar in the making.
He's going to grow into his body as well, and I got a hunch, or baseball people say anyway, once that happens, Shane, he will start driving the ball out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, he's 22 years old. He's still learning himself. He's still learning his body. But, like I told Justin, it's not about hitting the ball far. It's about being the great player, being the good guy that, goes out there, continue to try to hit 330. Don't try to hit 220 and hit 30 homers. Like that's, and what I try to tell him is try to hit 300 and hit 15, 20 homers, and be a more polished player. And so it's refreshing because he has that mindset. It's like, and what I told him is that a lot of times it happens when you get to this level. It's like, guys try to change you or they want you to become this player. I said, ultimately for you is just be Justin Crawford. Don't try to be something that you're not. And the rest will take care of itself. I think the city will fall in love with it. The organization obviously has fallen in love with it. And, the rest will take care of itself.
And that's great advice from Shane Victorino. He's played in some huge games. He's had some huge at-bats, and he has come up huge in multiple ways in October. And he's a big reason why the Phillies won the World Series in 2008. And he's a big reason they had that great run. He just is. And look, the Phillies opened the regular season less than 3 weeks, March 26th against the Rangers at Citizens Bank Park. And Justin Crawford, look, he is going to be the starting center fielder. He has been one of the organization's fastest rising young stars, widely viewed as the future center fielder. He has great pedigree. His father played in Major League Baseball. And he's looked good in spring training. And I don't put a lot of stats into spring training, but I would tell you I would rather have Justin Crawford playing well in Clearwater and down in the Grapefruit League than not playing well. I mean, if Carl Crawford was like, 1 for 30 down there, I would be like, okay, do we have a problem here? So he doesn't need to be a superstar. But if you look at what he did with the Iron Pigs last season, I mean, he was the best hitter in International League ranks, 334. Okay, he also scored the most runs, second most hits, third best on base percentage, third most stolen bases in the entire International League. And so when you look at what Justin Crawford did last year, I would tell you he's ready. And you won't know. And he's going to have his struggles. But I think surrounded around this core, he's going to provide that spark, that energy. He grew up around the game because of his dad, Carl. And when you look at what he's done so far in spring training, this is what I want to see. 22 at-bats, 273 batting average, no homers. He's not a power hitter. 1 RBI, 1 stolen base, 713 OPS. His calling cards are the speed and the defense, not power. That's fine. You don't need power. You have power throughout the lineup. But I like this 22-year-old, known for that elite range in center, and he has elite speed, and I do think that is going to be a big boost. We don't know how it's going to work out. Guys miss on prospects all the time. Mike Trout. I did stories on Mike Trout when he was in high school, right before he was drafted. He was drafted, 26th, 27th, whatever it was, by the Angels? You don't know. You just don't know. And so he could be a bust. He could be great. He could be average. But he's going to get a huge runway here to be successful. And Carl Crawford, drafted by the Phillies in the first round in 2022, he appears to be ready to go, and he's going to get that shot. And I think the Phillies could use that energy. I think this is going to be a really good thing for them. I really do. And you put him around guys like Kyle Schwarber. I think it's going to be great. I do. And I'm being optimistic here, but I think this is a good thing for the Phillies. And so far, so good down in Clearwater, Florida. All right, so the World Baseball Classic going on right now. Obviously better competition than Grapefruit League play, but I got to be honest. I don't know about you. I'm just not into it. I'm not into it. You have mostly the best players in the world representing their countries in real games that mean something in March. And players say they love it, like guys like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber have talked about how much pride they take in wearing USA across their chest. And I don't disagree with any of that. But here's the reality. And I don't think it's just the case in Philadelphia. I just don't think most people care about the WBC in the United States. And if you look at USA's game yesterday, the stands were half full in Houston, and they were full really from people from other countries and other fan bases from around the world. It wasn't filled with the American fan base. And I do say, I don't think people care about the WBC. Is it better competition for these players than Grapefruit League play? Absolutely. No question about it. But nobody's talking about the WBC. It's not dominating sports radio. It's not leading conversations at sports bars. It's not moving the needle the way you think it should. And yes, would the ratings be very high? And they were when they were on Fox Sports for the championship a few years ago against Japan. It was one of the highest rated events for one day. But I don't think over the World Series or the Super Bowl and things like that. I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it, and I don't get it. And so Bryce Harper said as excited as he is for the World Baseball Classic and represent the United States, it's not the Olympics. And he's not trying to be disrespectful, but it's not the Olympics. And maybe, just maybe, the Olympics, baseball should be back in the Olympics. And he said, listen to this quote, WBC is great, but it's not the Olympics. This is Phillies star Bryce Harper. He wants baseball back in the Olympics, and he hopes that it works out in the next CBA. He says, no disrespect to the WBC or anything, but everybody knows when the Olympics are on, everybody's watching. I agree with Bryce. I don't think anyone's watching. I don't think anyone cares, at least in the United States. And I also struggle to get into the Olympics, and I would tell you because of this. For the most part, you have no idea who these athletes are competing in the Olympics. And on top of, by the way, like a lot of these sports, you're like, I don't really know the rules and the ins and outs. But the Olympians, think of all the Olympians that you know over the course of time. You know the studs. You know the household names. But how many Olympians do you really know? And I think the Olympic Committee, I think the PR staffs, I think the Olympians themselves do a terrible job leading up to the Olympics to do stories, to get themselves out there so you know who they are. And so if you care about a player, if you care about an athlete going into the Olympics, there's this extra rooting interest. And that's why Team USA Hockey was so beloved in that final, because you know some of these guys. You know some of these guys from, playing in the NHL. You don't know who a lot of these Olympians are. You have no idea. They just appear on their screen and, they're skiing or they're swimming, whatever they're doing, whatever sport it is, you don't know who they are. And so think about the biggest names in Olympic history. Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, of course, in swimming. Track and field, Usain Bolt, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Jesse Owens, Carl Lewis. Gymnastics, Simone Biles. Winter Olympics, of course, Shaun White and Lindsey Vonn. Okay, how many names did I rattle off there? 10? There's probably 10 to 15 names that you really know. Throw Nancy Kerrigan in there and Tanya Harding, and by the way, for a different reason. There have been 18,000 Olympians in the United States history. We're talking about 10 to 15 that you really know. You don't know who they are. And so if they were out there more and we knew more about their backstories and things like that, and you would fall in love with them as people, then you can get behind the 2-week stretch of Olympics where you can get really into it. And I know Olympics, that gets great ratings on NBC and on television. I just can't get into it because I don't know a lot of these sports. I don't know a lot of the players, the athletes. And I think it's kind of what Bryce Harper's saying. He said the WBC is running into the same issue. People just don't care. And he's not trying to be disrespectful, and he's prideful wearing that for his country. I just don't think they care. But in any event, Kyle Schwarber, he says he's very excited to wear the USA across his chest this week in the World Baseball Classic, which is underway. And here's Kyle Schwarber on his excitement. He's excited, not me. Kyle Schwarber's excited for the World Baseball Classic.
The Skubal, try to recruit him, saying, "Hey, New York's a great place. Seattle's a great place. Philly's a great place." Try to recruit him as a free agent.
No. This isn't about our organizational baseball right now. This is about the 3 letters across our chest, and we're looking forward to the journey ahead. 7 wins. That's our goal right here. It's one at a time, and anytime that you get him or any of our other starters on the mound, it's going to be a really good day for us.
Second row, your left, guys.
On that note, Kyle, you talk about not being about organizational baseball, but rather about your country. Just can you go into the pride that goes into this when you're competing against, the world?
Absolutely. I think the best part about our game is that there's so many different cultures in our game, and we obviously all play organizationally, but this is about everyone having the pride for their country and trying to represent them the best that you can to your own ability. And it's never taken lightly. This is my 3rd opportunity to get the Wear USA across my chest, and every time it means something just as special as the last time. So you never take it for granted. Obviously, we have a great group of individuals in the room, and you get the take notes, mental notes, see how everyone's preparing, and knowing that whenever we step out in that field tomorrow, that we're going to get everyone's best shot, every country's best shot against us, and that we're all going to be prepared to give them our best shot as well.
A few rows back on your left, we'll go to Chandler.
Kyle, DeRosa and Logan said that you had the mic when you guys were, I guess, on the bus going to the airport. What were you saying or singing?
I do not sing, but it was just more about getting the boys together. It's just something that since I came up into the big leagues, that it brings that kind of camaraderie together, right? We get laughs, jokes, but at the end of the day, it's about we got a lot of people in the room that haven't got to play with each other. And first off, we're doing a fantastic job of just creating our culture that we want to have for our time together. And it was just something you just want to continue to do, the bring everyone closer. And I feel like we got a really good precedent set by, obviously, Judgy over here, DeRosa, everyone in the room. And we're excited to step on that field tomorrow.
Dero talked about having the passion that some of the Latin American teams have. Who do you think is going to be the first one jumping over the fence when there's a big home run?
It's going to be all of us, I'll tell you that. We're all going to be excited. This isn't about showing anyone up. This is about us pumping each other up and showing that we're going to keep that energy going as much as we can. Big punch out, whatever it is, big home run. We're all going to be out there. This is how you keep momentum going. You want the excitement, you want the edge, and this is about, obviously there's going to be great environment, but you also got to create your own energy, and we're going to be very energetic in our dugout.
By the way, Kyle Schwarber said he was not there to recruit Tarik Skubal of the Detroit Tigers. Please recruit him. He would be wonderful here in Philadelphia. All right, that'll do it for us here on Bet Park Saturday. Here at the Sportsbook at Parks Casino in Ben Salem, we appreciate you joining us as always on Bet Park Saturday live on the Sports Channel of PHLY Sports YouTube page for my producer, Julia Hoff. I am Jeff Skversky. A special thanks to our guests today, including Tom Verduchi of MLB Network and Fox Sports. Some great insight there. And, of course, Sixers tonight in Atlanta. No Joel Embiid. He is out once again. He'll be reevaluated in about a week. He'll miss at least another 4 games. All right, that'll do it for us on Bet Park Saturday. We'll see you next week here on Bet Park Saturday. Have a good one.
We all silly like the mayor.